critically acclaimed artist and influential voice in fighting racial discrimination and segregation, Hazel Scott was one of the loudest and most powerful voices of her generation. Today, we're going to be taking a look at her life, her trials, triumphs, positive impact, and legacy. Born on June 11, 1920, the only child of R. Thomas Scott, a West African scholar from England, and Alma Long Scott, a music teacher and classically trained pianist, Hazel Scott was a precocious child who fell in love with the piano at the mere age of 3 when she shocked everyone around her with her ability to play by ear. By the age of 8, she was beyond being called just a child musical prodigy. She was so talented at that age that she was able to receive a scholarship to study at the Juilliard School. It should be noted that 8 years old was way too young for standard enrollment. The required age was at least 16. Hazel's life didn't resemble the life of a normal teenage girl. When she was still in high school, she was hosting her own radio show on WOR and performing gigs at night. By the time she was 16, she had a reputation as a hot classicist due to her regular performances for radio programs for the Mutual Broadcasting System. And by the mid-30s, she had performed at the Roseland Dance Hall with the Count Basie Orchestra. She also appeared in the New York Scott and Club Review of 1938, The Priorities of 1942, and Sing Out the News. Her hot classicist talent extended to performing jazz, blues, Broadway, ballads, and boogie-woogie songs in nightclubs. Scott became a leading attraction from 1939 to 1943 thanks to the vision of Barney Josephson, the owner of Cafe Society, a place where artists of all races and ethnicities could perform. The darling of Cafe Society, Scott captured audiences with her electrifying renditions of classical masterpieces by Bach, Chopin, and Rachmaninoff. She earned national prestige for swinging the classics. At a time when an African-American woman, especially one as young as her, weren't particularly praised or that welcome in the entertainment world, Scott was able to earn $75,000 a year, which is about over $1 million in today's money, all by the year 1945. Scott and Lena Horne were also one of the first Afro-Caribbean women to get respectable parts in major Hollywood films. She even got to perform as herself in multiple features, such as Rhapsody in Blue, I Doed It, Broadway Rhythm, and the otherwise all-white cast of The Heat's On. It was on this set, The Heat's On, which starred Mae West, that the world got a taste of Hazel Scott's unyielding and fierce power. There was a scene where she played a WAC sergeant during World War II, and the costumes the black actresses were given were unacceptable to Scott. She said, no woman would see her sweetheart off to war wearing a dirty apron. She went on to stage a 3-day-long strike, one that ended with the springs being removed from the scene. Her defiance, as admirable as it is now, cost Scott her film career. I've been brash all my life, and it's gotten me into a lot of trouble, but at the same time, speaking out has sustained me and given meaning to my life, she said. Now, that's not the end of trials and impact. Scott was deeply committed to civil rights, particularly in Hollywood. She remarkably refused to take roles that cast her as a singing maid, and when she did perform, she required control of her wardrobe, so that if she felt like the studio's clothing options were unacceptable, she would wear her own. When she was on tour, she refused to perform in segregated venues. One time in Austin, Texas, she was escorted out of the city because she refused to perform after seeing that the black and white audiences were seated in separate sections. Never want to lie down to an insult, in 1949, Scott also sued the owners of a Pasco, Washington restaurant when waitress refused to serve her and a traveling companion. Her relentless, untiring defiance and victories helped African Americans challenge and eventually conquer racial discrimination in Spokane and inspire civil rights organizations. Scott had a television variety program, The Hazel Scott Show, but it was canceled after she appeared before HUAC in 1950. Short-lived as it was, her television show provided a glimmer of hope for African American viewers, and it was during a time when racial bias in the broadcasting industry challenged jazz musicians. A nervous breakdown ensued in 1951, but she speedily recovered from it and went on to play with Charles Mingus and Max Roach. She was able to continue performing all over Europe and the United States, getting bookings on shows like Cavalcade of Stars and guest starring CBS's Faye Emerson's Wonderful Town musical series. Politics sucked Scott in, and to evade the fallout in the US, she moved to Paris in 1957, where she continued her activism. In 1963, she was among the African-American expatriates like James Baldwin who marched to the U.S. Embassy in Paris to demonstrate support for the upcoming March on Washington. It wasn't until 1967, by the time the civil rights movement was able to end racial segregation and enforce the protection and voting rights of all citizens, that Scott was able to return to the U.S. Her success in dramatic acting, in classical music, and as a jazz pianist was unparalleled. She used her powerful voice and status as one of the most popular African-American entertainers of her age to call out racial injustice and civil rights issues. Until the very end of her life, Scott's performances and swinging style were high in demand. She recorded as the leader of several groups for Columbia, Decca, and Signature, and her relaxed piano moods 1955 album was still highly regarded by critics. Hazel Scott challenged every hardship that tried to trip her. She was one of the first Black entertainers to refuse to perform before segregated audiences, wrote in all her contracts as a standing clause that required forfeiture if she noticed a dividing line between the races, and challenged the treatment of Black actors. She demanded pay commensurate with the white actors she appeared with, and she loudly refused to play the stereotypical roles in which Black actors were commonly cast. On October 2nd, 1981, at the age of 61, Hazel Scott's battle ended at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. She was buried in Queens, New York at Flushing Cemetery near musicians such as Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, and Johnny Hodges. And that's all we have on Hazel Scott. What did you think of her legacy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. This will help our video get recognized. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.